and welcome back to Mallory in the Library. This week I have some really exciting stories to share with you, but first I wanted to see how people are doing. Hopefully you're doing well, staying warm, staying safe during this time. And so today we're going to talk about a creature who a lot of people don't really like. This creature can get a bad reputation, but I think that it's a really important animal to talk about. And it's an animal that lives in Toronto, and it's a coyote. And I was inspired to pick this theme because a friend of mine told me that they saw a coyote in their neighborhood in the annex just walking around. I think there were two of them. There's been a lot fewer cars on the road, a lot, not so many people walking around, so I think the coyotes have been coming out a little bit more. So if you live around there, if you see one, remember to keep a safe distance, but you can always watch them from a safe distance. And so people all over the world have told stories about wolves and coyotes for a long, long time, really since people have been telling stories. And to kind of show you about that, I have two stories that connect to each other. They are written from different places, they have different authors and different art styles, but the stories kind of connect. And so we'll start with the first one and then figure out about that. So this one is called Coyote in the Sky, How the Sun, Moon, and Stars Began. The story is by Emmett Schmicke Garcia and the illustrations are by Victoria Pringle. And so the author's note says, this is a Tamaya Pueblo creation story about the animal people's journey to the fourth world. And I believe that is yes. It's published by the University of New Mexico Press, and it's from kind of that area in the Southwest. Okay. A long time ago, the animal people decided to make a journey up into our world, the fourth world. Back then, where we lived in the underworld was called Shipap, or the third world. The animal people went to the leader of the third world and asked him for advice. What should we do when we go to the fourth world? And he gave them great advice about how they should all stay together and watch out for one another. But there was one animal that leader didn't allow to join the other animals on their journey. Coyote. This was because he was always making mischief or trying to trick someone out of their food. When everyone was ready, they started to make their long journey. The animal people began to climb and climb up into the fourth world. When they arrived, it was very dark. They could not see anything and kept bumping into one another, and they were scared. What should we do? They asked each other. The animal people huddled into a close circle. They decided to send Squirrel and Rabbit back down into the third world to ask Leader for more advice. There is no light in the fourth world. What should we do? Cried Rabbit. Leader took some time to think about their problem. Then he began to build a big fire, and while it was burning, he began to make a yucca mat. That's kind of like a plant. It's like a tuber, like a potato almost. When he was done, the coals from the fire were nice and hot and glowing. Leader used a stick to put all the coals onto the yucca mat and tied it into a bundle. So you can make these neat mats with the skin of this vegetable after you eat it. He told Squirrel and Rabbit to run quickly with the bundle up into the fourth world. When they reached the other animal people, they opened the yucca mat. The animal people grabbed each corner of the mat and flung it into the heavens. The glowing coals came together into a big circle in the eastern sky and became our sun. At last there was light. How beautiful it was. But then the sun began to move across the sky to the west and soon disappeared. It was dark again. Now what should we do? The animal people once again huddled into a small circle. Again they decided to send Squirrel and Rabbit, because they were the fastest, down to the third world to ask Leader what to do. This time he made an even bigger fire with bigger coals, and while it was burning he made another yucca mat. When the mat was done and the coals from the fire were red and hot, Leader took the coals and put them on the mat. Leader tied the mat into an even larger bundle. It was very heavy, and Rabbit lifted the bundle with all her might and ran up to the fourth world, with Squirrel leading the way. When they reached the animal people, they untied the bundle. They took each corner of the mat and with a great effort flung it into the heavens. And this became our moon. But still, it wasn't bright enough. Something was missing. So Squirrel and Rabbit were sent down again to the third world to ask Leader what to do next. This time, he made an even bigger fire and an even bigger mat. All this time, little did they know, Coyote was hiding and watching and listening. When all was ready, Leader wrapped the red-hot coals in the mat and told Rabbit to run as quickly as she could back up to the fourth world, with Squirrel leading the way. Rabbit could feel the heat from the coals, and even to this day you can see that Rabbit's eyes are pink from the heat. But Rabbit was very brave. She held the yucca mat out in front of her, and all she could see was Squirrel's tail leading the way. They did not know that Coyote had come out of hiding and was following them up into the fourth world. When they reached the other animal people, Coyote was very angry that he had not been invited to come to the fourth world. Coyote sulked behind a big rock so that no one could see him. When the animal people opened the big bundle, they asked Badger to draw pictures of each animal on the yucca mat with the red-hot coals, and Badger began to do so with a stick. All this time, Coyote was getting angrier and angrier. Suddenly, he jumped out from his hiding place and grabbed one corner of the mat and flung it into the heavens. These coals became our stars. And if you look closely at the stars today, you can still see the outlines of the animal people that Badger drew on the yucca mat. These are our constellations. In some places, the stars are in clusters, like in the Milky Way. This is where Coyote messed up Badger's drawings. Finally, Squirrel ran back to the third world to tell Leader what Coyote had done. And Leader decided to go up to the fourth world. When he got to the animal people, he told Coyote that he had been bad and must leave the fourth world. Leader put Coyote in a yucca mat and threw him up among the stars in the southeast corner of the sky. He sent Squirrel into the northwest corner of the sky to watch out for the future of all the animal people. Today, that constellation is known as the Big Dipper. And this is how the sun, the moon, and the stars came to be. And so in that one, Coyote kind of plays a trick. And he throws all those stars up, but it kind of turns out in the end. And so this one is kind of similar. We'll have to see what kind of connections we can make. And this one is called Coyote Sings to the Moon, It's by Thomas King and it's illustrated by Johnny Wales. Old woman and all the animals are sitting at the edge of the pond, feeling glum, when Coyote pops out of the water. You again, says Old Woman. Relax, says Coyote. I found Moon. She's at the bottom of the pond. Old Woman and all the animals put their heads into the pond, and sure enough, there's Moon playing chess with Sunfish. This is a fine mess you've made, Old Woman tells Coyote. Now, what are we going to do? Uh-oh. Maybe Coyote was being a little mischievous again, playing some tricks. So, Coyote and the animals and Old Woman sit on the grass by the pond in the dark and think. After a while, Old Woman stands up. All right, she says, first we have to build a raft. So, all of the next day, when they can see what they are doing, Old Woman and the animals and Coyote build a raft. And just before the sun disappears, everybody gets on the raft and they float out to where Moon is lounging on the bottom of the pond. All right, says Old Woman. Everybody sing. Everybody except Coyote. That's not very nice, says Coyote. After all, I found Moon. Just sit there and be quiet, says Old Woman. Old Woman begins to sing first. Moon, moon, come back soon. And then one by one, all the animals join in. Moon, moon, come back soon. They sing for hours and hours. Moon, moon, come back soon. But nothing happens. And when Old Woman looks underwater, Moon is still playing chess and relaxing on the beach blanket under the beach umbrella. Okay, says Old Woman. Now we get serious. Old Woman moves all the animals off to one side of the raft. Stop singing, she says, and put your fingers in your ears. Okay, say all the animals. Old Woman tries to smile at Coyote. I was wrong about your singing, she says. You have a beautiful voice, and I think if you sing all by yourself, Moon will go back up in the sky. A solo, says Coyote, trying to keep his tongue from falling out of his head. But you have to sing really loud, says Old Woman. I'll sing really, really loud, says Coyote. But, says Old Woman, don't sing until I give you the signal. Coyote takes out his comb and brushes his coat. He runs his tongue over his teeth and wipes his nose on his arm. Old Woman sits on the raft with the animals and puts her fingers in her ears. Okay, she says, closing her eyes. Hit it. Coyote sits up straight, points his nose at the stars, opens his mouth, and begins to sing. Yikes! Scream Old Woman and all the animals. Yow! Yow! Sings Coyote. Stop! Stop! Scream Old Woman and all the animals. It's worse than we thought. But Coyote doesn't hear them. He keeps right on singing. Down at the bottom of the pond, Moon is just about to take Sunfish's queen with her rook when she hears Coyote. What is that awful noise, says Moon. It's a good thing I don't have ears, says Sunfish. Coyote's singing gets louder and louder, and Moon puts her fingers in her ears, but it doesn't help. Who is making that horrible noise, says Moon, as she packs up her umbrella and her blanket and swims to the top of the pond to see what is happening. When Old Woman sees Moon coming to the surface, she yells at Coyote, "Sing louder!" Just as Moon comes out of the water and looks around, Coyote takes a deep breath and sings as loud as he can. Ow! Ow! "Ha!" screams Moon, and she leaps up into the sky. "Ow!" says Coyote. "Yow!" Moon climbs into the sky as fast as she can, trying to get away from Coyote's singing. "Enough!" yells Old Woman. But Coyote doesn't hear her, and he keeps singing, and Moon keeps climbing. Old Woman can see that if she doesn't shut Coyote up, Moon will climb into the sky until she disappears. So quick as she can, Old Woman grabs Coyote's tongue and wraps it around his mouth so he can't sing anymore. But Coyote's tongue is long and slippery, and by the time she has Coyote's mouth all wrapped up, Moon is much farther away than before, and the light from Moon is very dim. "Oh dear," says Old Woman. "This didn't exactly work out the way I planned." "Would you please unwrap my tongue?" says Coyote, with his tongue wrapped around his mouth. "But I guess it will have to do," says Old Woman. "Anything to keep Coyote from singing," say the animals. But just then, Moon begins sneaking out of the sky toward that pond. "Look out! Look out!" all the animals yell to Old Woman. "Moon is sneaking out of the sky." Old Woman looks up. Moon is picking up speed, headed for that pond. Old Woman grabs Coyote's tongue and unwraps his mouth. "Start singing," she shouts. "Are you going to wrap my tongue around my mouth again?" says Coyote. "Just sing," says the Old Woman. So Coyote starts to sing again. "Yo! Ow!" And as soon as Moon hears Coyote start to sing, she turns around and heads back up into the sky. "Well," says Old Woman, "this is a fine mess." "I have an idea," says Coyote. "I'll watch Moon every night, and whenever she tries to sneak back to the pond, I'll sing to her." "Oh no," say all the animals. "Oh no," says the Old Woman. But it's the only way to keep the moon in the sky. So every evening when Old Woman walks down to the pond to watch Moon come up, Coyote sits on a hill and waits. He combs his fur, he runs his tongue around his teeth, and he wipes his nose on his arm. "Ow!" he sings softly to himself, just to stay in good voice. "Ow!" So, both of these stories, Coyote was kind of an important part in getting certain things to stay in the sky. In the first one, it's the stars, and in the second one, it's the moon. And there is another traditional story where Coyote, being as silly as he is, he steals the moon. But that one is maybe for another day. This one that we'll read next is kind of more about a coyote that we might see in our own neighborhood. It also has a moon, but the moon isn't as much a character as the last one. So this one's called Coyote Moon by Maria Gianferrari, and the pictures are by Bagram Ibatulini. Moon rises as Coyote wakes in her den, a hollowed-out pine in a cemetery. Coyote crawls between roots. She sniffs the air, arches her back, and shakes her fur. Pups peek through the roof's fingers. It's nighttime in the neighborhood, and Coyote's family is hungry. Pups wait near the den. They're easy prey for swooping hawks, but their older siblings stand by as sentinels. I know this picture might be hard to see, but I think that these are the littlest pups, and then there's two bigger ones. Maybe you have an older sibling that helps look after you sometimes. Coyote trots along roads, under fences, between houses. She slips through the night, as quiet as a ghost, searching for prey. Coyote listens. Her triangle ears sit high on her head. She hears scratching. She slides through boxwood and then crouches. Can you see what she sees here, a little mouse? Pounce! Mouse scuttles. Coyote digs and digs, but Mouse is safe beneath the stone wall. We'll figure out. These pictures are a little bit darker than usual. Coyote sniffs. She creeps through tangled brush, tracking the scent of golf course geese. She follows her nose and then lurks among alder bushes. Coyote charges the nest. Geese hiss and dive, honk and snap, nipping Coyote's back. Coyote flees. No eggs for breakfast. Coyote looks. Her sharp eyes spy rabbit. She slinks, silent as a shadow. Twigs crack. Rabbit freezes. Ears twitch. Coyote lunges. Rabbit leaps. Shadows blur. Coyote is fast, but rabbit is faster, skittering under the slide to safety. The moon sinks. Stars fade from the sky. The sun's eye peaks. Coyote threads through rusty reeds at the fringe where earth and water meet. She wades and waits. Coyote hears gobbling. Coyote smells droppings. Coyote sees Turkey, unfurling his feathers like a fan. Turkey struts, drumming and dragging his wings, and Coyote springs. Maybe you can see a little bit of the turkeys right over there. Now, Coyote's family will eat. Maybe you like to eat turkey too. I know I do sometimes. Coyote drops Turkey to sing, yip, 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 pew, to the dawn. Yip, 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 pew. Coyote's family sings back. You open your window. Coyote hears, sniffs, looks. You watch as Coyote slips under the fence painted pink by the sun. Beyond your backyard, past the fence, by the cemetery, Coyote's family feasts. Full-bellied, they will sleep until the moon wakes them again. So there's a few little facts in the back about coyotes, so we can share some of those. The first one says, home sweet home. Coyotes live in dens. They dig multiple sites that have emergency exits and sometimes use the abandoned dens of other animals. They prefer to live in edge habitats, which are wooded areas bordering fields. Trees and shrubbery provide cover for hunting. In the suburbs, where this story takes place, a golf course or cemetery is an ideal hunting ground. And then I'll read you this part about territory. Coyotes have sniffed their way into cities and suburbs in their search for food and new territory. Territory is an area that an animal defends. It's kind of like their house. Coyotes keep non-family members off their turf by marking their borders with urine and scat. Coyotes live in every American state except Hawaii, and I think that they live in every province in Canada too. They range as far north as Alaska and as far south as Panama, and live in a variety of habitats, woodlands, wetlands, deserts, grasslands, and tundras. They even live in large cities, like the one in Toronto. In the spring of 2015, several were spotted around New York City, and one was even seen on a rooftop in Queens. When they're caught, they get released into the wild. So even when we read stories like this and we think maybe that's going to be a friendly coyote, it's always best to keep your distance from every wild animal. They're so beautiful and so fun to learn about from far away, but we have to remember to give them space so that they give us space too. And so those are our stories about coyotes for this week. Next week's theme, I haven't quite decided about. I think that some ideas might be snow and hibernation, but if there's a topic that you would really like to see a story time for, please leave me a comment, and I would love to hear from you about the types of stories that you enjoy. So in the meantime, I hope that you have a great week and join us again next week for some more stories. Thank you.